Islam, Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum, Osio, Bonjour, Hola, Aloha. This is your brother, Zach Bey, Indigenous American Moor, coming to you live and in full effect. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel. Hit that thumbs up button. It helps the algorithm. And leave a comment down below. I really like to hear from you. Today, I want to continue on my topic of reparations and combating white supremacy and American systematic racism. All right, so this video is going to focus more on how we could potentially use said reparations to combat white supremacy and American systematic racism. All right, but this one is specifically for the women of our community. All right, specifically for the women and how they can really do a big part as a collective in our community in order to bring us together as a stronger unit, because we know a lot of our women have a lot of the resources that we need, a lot of the social outreach that we need. A lot of our women have large social networks, and they can reach a larger audience because, by and far, women are naturally more appealing to both sexes in generally, male and female. Women are generally more appealing, more maybe more hospitable, more welcoming, less threatening, as in the eyes of white supremacy and American systematic racism. All right, but how our women can use their advantage position and systematic racism and American white supremacy, as far as we know that our women are placed in front or on top of our men, because of course women are more adaptable as far as adjusting to new trends, raising the children for the next generation to be more hospitable for different grooming tactics, different indoctrinations. All right, so they used our women as natural motherly instincts, as their fear of losing their children, to keep the future generations in line. So women were used by American racism and white supremacy to advance their cause as far as self-preservation and the preservation of their offspring, by teaching said children to stay in their so-called place, stay in line, right? In order to, not see them harmed, hurt, or being separated from them in any type of way. All right. In modern day and age, they're often placed in positions of maybe secretaries or aides, because of course they're more appealing to the eyes. Of course, we know our women are amongst the most beautiful women, if not the most beautiful women on this planet. So of course, we know the so-called white man likes to gaze at our women, so therefore they will be more appetizing to the sight, all right, to the view, as opposed to having a male or man there, one of our men, who is threatening in every type of way to the so-called white genetic survival. All right, so a lot of it breaks down and it comes all back to so-called white genetic survival. If you read Sister Frances Cress Welsing's books, The ISIS Papers, and how she breaks down systematic racism, white supremacy, and how it links and it's rooted to the so-called white genetic survival. All right, because we know any so-called other category of human or subspecies of human combined with a melanated human, which is a more dominant genes, will override the recessive genes, which are normally more lighter, pale, weaker genes, scientifically speaking. So our women were often used to be put in place as far as like secretaries, bookkeepers, accountants, nurses, um, waitresses, things of that nature. So I feel our women can use, and we as a community can coach our women and teach them to use this tactic that has been leveraged against our people, against systematic racism and white supremacy here in America. Since our women are often given grants, even um, different type of aid and financial aids, um, anything government related aid, organizations specifically giving our women aid. In turn, our women use those grants or aids to and therefore empower the men of our communities. All right. So what I mean by that is, per se, a woman in our community could potentially start a business or get a grant to start a business, and with that business she can use her advantaged position as far as being more appealing for American systematic racism and white supremacy in order to get that grant, or so-called the double minority status as being a so-called minority, a POC, person of color, um, so-called, and also being a woman. So that double minority status places them in certain advantage positions as far as getting certain grants and loans that are specifically for a designated group of minorities. All right. Um, that's the primary point that I'm trying to make here, is that the slightly advantaged places that our women are getting in order to disadvantage the men in our community, they can in turn use that to empower the men in our communities by starting businesses, starting organizations, outreach programs specifically for male and male youth. Um, Women can use said grants or organizational aids to start businesses, um, to create jobs and provide jobs, to of course open recreational centers or youth centers, to create youth groups, urban youth leagues, etc. And they can also use their organizational skills to help to empower fathers in our community. All right, because a lot of women, and as a large, our community is at a very high detriment, a very high deficiency, I should say, of fathers that are able to have access and actually have a positive influence on their children. But the statistics do say, you can check these statistics yourself, that the so-called black male is the most active father out of all men in any demographic. All right. We are the most active fathers when we are able to have complete access, unrestricted access to our children. All right. We are the most we show up to the most meetings. We help with the homework the most. We spend the most time. We are the most active. You could look up these statistics yourself. All right. So the so-called deadbeat dad, as being a so-called black man scenario, that myth has completely been busted, has been broken. All right. So our women can use their slightly status position in the system of white supremacy and American systematic racism to advantage and empower the men and the males in our community, especially the male youth, fathers, and they can do trades training, and I believe also legal empowerment. All right, having access to legal resources, legal information, in order to help our people as a whole. All right, I believe all of our people, male and female, young and old, should all have a basic understanding, overstanding, and understanding of law and how law and the legal system in this country works, the advantages and disadvantages of so-called POC, people of color, so-called minorities. All right, all these misnomers. I believe that should be a foundational teaching for all of us to have a basic understanding of our place in this system and this system's functioning towards our nation and our community of people specifically. And I believe we can use the enemy's disposition and we can use the adversary's own tactics against them in order to help aid our community um, for the future. All right, in ways our women are slightly advantaged is, of course, I mentioned the double minority status when it comes to when companies do their hiring and they tally up their numbers on the books in order to get certain government stipends and government tax breaks and things of that nature. A double minority would be a so-called person of color and a woman. That would count as two in the books. Instead of having a male or a male of color or a so-called not of color, and in general. All right, so just being a female for one, a woman, and being a so-called minority, that would be a double tax break that these companies and organizations are getting. um our women have all often been used in white supremacies as weapons against us, as far as being the watchdogs or gatekeepers, or mouthpieces for white supremacy and systematic racism in America. As far as, I would say, a prime example of that would be Oprah Winfrey. A prime example of that would be Oprah Winfrey. She has been a gatekeeper, a watchdog, and a mouthpiece for systematic white supremacy here in America, American racism. Um, as far as being in certain key positions and keeping other people who look like us back when someone would have a type of, to feel like they're advantage or they're immune to racism, they want to keep others down. And a lot of times, like the so-called slave driver would be somebody who would be considered a slave, but yet they're placed in a position above the slave in order to create distance between the so-called master and the slaves. So they will be the person who takes the instruction and pass that instruction down, sort of like the middle management type people, or the people who love doing like micromanaging, the people who don't have any real authority but they have a title and they like to use that title as some type of authority because it seems like they might be one notch ahead of you, in order to speak to management or to have some type of authority or power over another person in a company or any type of social setting. All right, so I think that's very, very important. And another resource our women can use those grants for, this is the last topic I want to touch on, is etiquette training. All right, women can actually do etiquette training in order to teach our young girls how to be wives, how to be ladies. All right, how to be respectable ladies in our community, instead of letting them be groomed and coerced by celebrities or the so-called entertainers that are placed in front of our people as a detriment to our community and our society as a whole. All right, a lot of times they love using our women as puppets in order to shape the next generation, in a negative way. So we have to take the proper steps to prevent our women from being used in that way, and also to prevent that from happening to another generation after this generation, in the generation that's coming up now. All right. So I really wanted to touch on this topic just to put this information out there. I would really love to hear from you and to speak more on this. Any kind of ideas you might have in order to help our people move forward in a positive way, regarding the receiving of reparations for American chattel slavery. Thank you once again. This is your brother Zach Bey. Peace. Wado.